pain that it cost him. My 16 should have came with a coffin. The fame and the fortune. Well, maybe not the fortune, but one thing is for sure, though, the fame is exhausting. That's why I moved away. I needed privacy.
Welcome back to the Comeback Kid, everyone. So when we were last with you, we were recapping what the NHL season has been thus far, and now we turn our attention to soccer, specifically on a global scale with national teams in stake. And the United States men's... You know what? I'm not even going to give you guys a description because Nate is raring to go to tell you guys all about what is going on with U.S. soccer. Nate, let him have it.
All right, so after the U.S. failed to qualify for the World Cup, I was pretty upset, and I saw a few days later that some other big countries failed to qualify. The Netherlands failed to qualify. Ghana failed to qualify. About a month later, Italy lost in their qualifying playoffs, so they failed to qualify. And so a joke was kind of being thrown around soccer Twitter, saying like, hey, why don't we just have our own NIT tournament, with all these countries that failed to make the World Cup. And, it was a joke, and I don't think anybody was taking it seriously. But this is per Stephen Goff at Soccer Insider on Twitter, one of the best soccer writers in the United States for the Washington Post, says that U.S. Soccer and Soccer United Marketing are indeed looking into the possibility of bringing non-World Cup sides, such as Italy, Netherlands, Ghana, and Chile, to the U.S. next summer for a World Cup or series of friendlies. So basically, the U.S. Soccer Federation wants to put on their own NIT soccer tournament for teams that missed the World Cup. For those of you that don't know, the NIT is the college basketball tournament for teams that miss out on the NCAA tournament. So the top 68 teams are selected for the NCAA tournament, and then the next 32 teams after that go to the NIT. So I have a lot to say about this. So first off, why would we want to put on our own tournament? And I've got a few theories. First off, money. The U.S. Soccer Federation is losing out on a lot of money by the U.S. men's national team not being at the World Cup. And so I feel like they think that this is a chance to make back some of that money that they're going to be losing, particularly by hosting the tournament, having it here in the United States. I believe that U.S. Soccer had a $50 million surplus after hosting Copa America Centenario in 2016. And so they know that, hey, we're going to lose a lot of money by missing out on the World Cup, so here's a chance to kind of make back some of that money. Another theory that I've heard is player development, that this would be a tournament for youth players, so anyone under, I've heard 25 or 23, so only this would be like a youth tournament to get a chance to develop players, and that this so-called tournament would be not only for the benefit of American players, but for young Italian players, young Dutch players, young Ivory Coast players, young Chilean players who are missing out on the World Cup, going to be missing out on that player development. But I think that the player development argument is a bunch of crap. I was actually talking with someone about this right when this story came out a few weeks ago, and they said, well, yeah, this would be good for player development. But I said, no, it's not about player development. Like I said, this is a complete money grab by U.S. Soccer to make back the money that they're going to be losing for the U.S. men's national team missing the World Cup. And I think that this plays into the arrogance of the U.S. soccer player, of the U.S. soccer fan, including myself, because over the course of World Cup qualifying, I was very arrogant. I said, oh man, even after we lost the first two matches against Costa Rica, I said, oh, we're still going to qualify. Even after we lost a home match to Costa Rica and then barely drew against Honduras on a scrappy Bobby Wood goal, I said, oh, hey, we're still going to qualify. So there's this, I've talked about it on this show before, the collective arrogance of the U.S. Soccer Federation, of the U.S. Soccer fan, of the U.S. Soccer player, and of Bruce Arena. We talked about it last week, Bruce Arena going on the Fox broadcast, and I've beaten that dead horse multiple times, just how arrogant we are as a soccer nation, despite the fact that we have accomplished literally nothing on the men's side of international soccer. We've accomplished nothing. I can't remember who said it, but he said, we have the arrogance of Germany, but we're not even as good as Australia. So one last point that I want to make about this tournament is that these other countries wouldn't want to play. You think that with all the proud soccer history of the Netherlands, or the proud soccer history of Italy, or even the proud soccer history of Ghana, who's accomplished much more than we have at the international stage. You think they want to come to the United States and come play in our loser tournament? Like, seriously, if you're Gigi Buffon, do you want to come to the United States and play in a loser tournament? If you're Arjen Robben, do you want to come to the United States and play in a loser tournament? Like, it is so ridiculous that, going back to that arrogance that we have, that we think that these other countries are going to want to come and play in our tournament just because, we missed out on the World Cup. No, you missed out on the World Cup because you weren't good enough. You weren't good enough to go to Trinidad and Tobago and get a draw. A Trinidad and Tobago side that had lost 9 straight games in qualifying. You weren't good enough to go there and draw. So don't come out with this idea of, hey, we want to have our own tournament. No, you're not the first country to miss out on the World Cup, so deal with it just like everybody else has dealt with it.
Wow, Nate. There you go. You had your pedestal to yell at U.S. soccer. And, yeah, I think that was well said, though, because there's a type of arrogance not just in soccer, but I think in American culture, that everything should be handed to us. And I think that cultural dynamic is very apparent in this circumstance. And they're kind of overcompensating to the point where they're just making everything worse. Because if the United States were to just kind of just go away quietly, I'm sure that the American public eye, outside of the hardcore U.S. soccer fan, would turn their attention away from U.S. soccer. And the 4 years until the next World Cup, or the 2 years until the next big international tournament, would not seem as far. However, U.S. soccer they're like still inserting themselves into the public eye and still inserting themselves into the media cycle. And especially with how soon, it wasn't that long ago that we lost to Trinidad and Tobago. What day was it? What was that day?
October 10th, 2017.
Yes, the day that will forever be etched in Nate Williams' mind.
Yes.
Until, that might as well be on your gravestone, that day. That was the day where a little part of you just...
Yeah, a part of me died.
Yeah.
And it still eats away at my soul, and it's going to eat away at my soul.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was a little dark. But, U.S. soccer, just go home. Just go home, rest a little bit, just stare at yourself in the mirror. Don't let Bruce Arena out of the house.
Yes.
Leave him in there. If anyone should be on house arrest, it should be Bruce Arena, right? And
you beat me to it.
So, you know what, U.S. just, again, we said it the day, again, what was the date, Nate?
It was October 10th. October 10th, yeah.
Yes. So we said soon after October 10th that we would have 4 years to talk about this. And, I just hope that we're not going to talk about it as frequently, just because U.S. soccer just needs to stop.
And with all the problems that are in the U.S. Soccer Federation, and pay to play, and all this talk about promotion and relegation, and all the problems that need to be fixed with U.S. soccer, why don't you focus on taking that $50 million surplus that you had from Copa America and putting it to fix those problems, instead of saying, hey, let's put on our own tournament. To me, it's almost like a distraction. It's like, oh, hey, don't pay attention to like all the problems that we have, because we're about to put on our own tournament. It's so unbelievably arrogant for, like I said, a soccer nation that has accomplished absolutely nothing. If the women's team wants to put on their own tournament, and like they've earned the right to do that because they've won 3 World Cups, versus the men's national team has made it out of the round of 16, I think once. I think one time since 1930 we've made it past the round of 16. So don't come up here walking around like you're Germany when you couldn't even beat Trinidad and Tobago.
I mean, I don't think any country who doesn't qualify for the World Cup has any right to form a tournament like this, especially as soon after the results. It almost sounds like a kid not being able to eat lunch at a certain table, and he's like, oh, well, that's okay, I'll start even a better table over here. It's just childish, and I think it sucks that soccer, which is such a prevalent sport here and growing, is going to have to do it without seeing the men's national team in the World Cup. And I just don't think that any tournament will put the right idea forward for U.S. fans, except for the World Cup. And if it doesn't happen in 2022, it's going to even be worse.
Exactly. If we want people to take us seriously as a soccer nation, then we cannot have our own NIT tournament, because then we talk about as American soccer fans, we talk about how we want to be respected, and these European nations, they're laughing at us because our quality of soccer is not as good as theirs. But the reality is that if we were to go ahead and do something like this, it would just be an absolute embarrassment, and it would just be so humiliating for me as a soccer fan. We want people to take us seriously, yet we miss the World Cup, and like you said, it's childish. It's childish. It's stupid. It is absolutely ridiculous. But it doesn't surprise me that the U.S. Soccer Federation would try and do something like this just because of the money that they would make from a tournament like this.
Yeah, we mentioned corporate power earlier in the show, and I think that theme is also really applicable here. And so it's going to be very interesting moving forward to see if the U.S. Soccer Federation can end this PR nightmare that has been the past few months in terms of building soccer in America. So great stuff, Nate. Thank you for enlightening our listeners as to the ways in which U.S. soccer is adding fuel to the fire of travesty for their organization. So when we come back, we're going to let you know who rides the bus this week. And Matt, you're excited about this ride the bus this week, and then we're gonna update you guys with the upstart success of USD athletics. Our athletic teams have been doing great, and then we'll give you guys what we are watching in this upcoming week in the world of sports. Stay tuned, you guys. We'll be right back.